Okay, then we came back to Derek Morgan, our NFL champion, and apparently his wife is a chef, and she started cooking vegan food for all the team. So we have this whole buffet laid out about all this food that looks like animal food. It's, vegan burgers and buffalo wings and cheese, and none of it's real animal products, but the players love that it tastes so good. And I'm just going to have a quick look at those players, as I look at um, Derek Morgan's mates. Well, by the way, Derek himself, he became a vegan and proceeded to uh, get injured. He had a career low performance in 2018 and announced his retirement after injury this year. So he's done. Of his mates that paraded one after the other, Daquan Jones, look, he got injured too just after becoming a vegan, but he was placed on the injured reserve list, and then did go on last year and have a average kind of a season. I'm looking at the stats. I'm trying to read NFL stats. Kind of a probably third, the worst stats in his last 3 years, but he's still playing at least. We look at Rashard Matthews, again, became a vegan and proceeded to have the worst 2 years of his career in the last decade. He was placed on the injured list also, and he has now been released from that team, the Tennessee Titans, and he has announced his retirement this year. That's just 2 years after becoming a vegan. We got here Wesley Woodyard. At least he's still going. He's had a reasonable couple of years since becoming a vegan. Or is he a vegan? I mean, he went and ate vegan food for the purpose of our documentary. I don't know that he's actually a vegan. Jarrell Casey, yep, he's still going. And yeah, his stats haven't really improved. They haven't slipped back. He's still playing for the Tennessee Titans. Brian Arakipo. Yeah, he had one of his worst years last year and has announced his retirement. And Ty Smith, not a lot of stats there. He's just a fairly young fellow coming through the ranks now. I don't know. I'm a little bit confused what they were trying to prove there. If they were saying that all of those guys had become vegans because one of their mates' wives was cooking vegan food for them. Her name's Charity Morgan. I think she's still cooking vegan food as a chef. But it just didn't stack up real well for the purpose of longevity on a vegan diet, if that's what they were trying to explain to us. It didn't really end up so well for most of those players. So here is perhaps the most ironic part of the whole film. James is now drawing a comparison with his grandfather dying at the age of 63 because of a lifetime of smoking, and he's pissed off because his health's improving and his dad's health's improving and his wife and child are on board with this plant-based diet, and why does the world not know how good this plant-based diet is for our health? So he's drawing a comparison with the fact that they used to use elite athletes to promote the health benefits of smoking. I'm sure if you look back into the advertising campaigns, a lot of movie stars were jumping all over promoting cigarettes as well. back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, he's even made mention of Babe Ruth, the baseball player. Anyone who's ever known anything about sport would know that name. So, so the irony in the parallel he's drawing here to me is that this is exactly what the vegan movement is doing today. They're utilising sports stars and movie stars to promote the merits of veganism as a healthy choice, just like back in the 30s, 40s and 50s, we used to use sports stars and movie stars to promote the merits of smoking as a healthy lifestyle. Like, he's kind of drawing the same comparison that I am, except he's suggesting it in reverse. And we're seeing more and more, we're seeing more and more these really high profile people coming out and trying to sell the world on veganism as a healthy choice, just like smoking was back in the day. They then move straight from condemning cigarettes and showing how they got banned from being sponsors and promoted at major sporting events, and another big player stepped up to take their place. And they're about to start bagging all of the fast food industries: McDonald's, Subway, Burger King, KFC. But fast food has always been known as not good for our health. It's irrelevant whether it's plant or animal based. Like, you do not want to live on a fast food diet. That stuff has been destroyed through processing. Like, there's no parallel here to be drawn between fast food and animal products. None at all. I mean, the food is heavily damaged through processing. So, completely irrelevant. But let's play that card because it makes for good footage in our mockumentary. James himself then goes on to condemn the meat, egg and dairy industries for muddying the waters here, for covertly tricking people into thinking that animal products never cause any of our health issues. And I just think, isn't that interesting, while I'm watching a documentary whose producer, director, James Cameron, owns $140 million worth of shares in the biggest pea protein manufacturing facility in the world. Yeah. Does that not ring alarm bells for somebody else?
Works beautifully for people.
So they just also use the analogy, drawing the link between secondhand smoke and cancer. And here I am watching a vegan propaganda piece, and I'm really concerned about the impact on my health because I could experience secondhand exposure. I might be negatively impacted almost as badly as vegans by eating all that rubbish that they think's good for their health and not consuming animal products. So even on my Facebook page, I'm concerned about the secondhand exposure I'm now getting to vegans from around the world. I'm not a homophobe, but perhaps I'm a bit of a vegaphobe. I better keep a close eye on that. I don't want it to negatively impact my health and well-being. Now they're going to show a whole heap of media and a lot of reports, and they're going to say about diet plans are confused and muddled. And this is like an intentional ploy to trick people into thinking what's good for them. I totally agree with that, in the opposite context of what this movie is portraying. They are intentionally confusing and muddling people with what they share and the data that they cherry pick so that you think you now know a better way, a healthier way. And even while they're trying to portray all of this to, bamboozle you into thinking that something's better for you, they keep referring to plant-based, plant-heavy diet. Like, I've hardly ever heard through this whole documentary, I'm getting near the end of it now, I've hardly ever heard the concept that a plant-only diet is better for your health. Other than a few isolated incidents of athletes who have since broken down and stopped competing. Now we come to the lowest blow of the entire film, and I've been talking in jest about the dribble they're going on with all the way through, but now we've gone to South Africa or Zimbabwe. I didn't notice where we were in Africa, and we're going to talk about the almost extinction of the rhinoceros because they've been hunted for their horn. I thought this was about a plant-based diet. What has hunting rhinoceros got to do with eating meat? At what point in human evolution did we hunt the rhinoceros to eat them instead of harvest the horn? I'm sure we did at some point in time. There's no question. The tribes of Africa would have hunted any animal for food back in the day. But this has nothing to do with a plant-based diet or a carnivore diet. This has nothing to do with whether meat is good or bad for you. This is just a really clever play on people's emotional heartstrings. Let's just pull them, let's just pull those heartstrings. I don't know many omnivores or carnivores that would say, let's go wild game hunting for pleasure. I'm happy for somebody watching this to reach out to me and let me know that that is a part of the psyche of a person who eats meat. I mean, this is a part of the reason why we farm animals. We're not killing and eating endangered species. We have breeding programs in place so that they're never likely to die out because farmers are taking care of these animals and raising more animals. So for me, yes, I've enjoyed the light entertainment value of it up until now. I just think it's a joke to go this path and condemn people who eat meat as wild game hunters of rhinoceros. Pathetic. 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 Yeah, and more of the same. Dead elephant because some bloke wanted an elephant's tusk on his desk. Like, show me the relevance to a carnivore or an omnivore of endangered species being shot and killed for trophies. Like, that thought doesn't even cross my mind. I would love to travel the world and visit places and see native wildlife in their own habitat. I would not even for one moment considering trying to kill any of them. And I will keep eating meat because it's good for my health. Yeah, I kind of smile again. I mean, I'm sure he's an awesome bloke. Damien Mander, he's saving these animals in Africa from the poachers and he's training people to protect them. But he had this realisation that he's protecting animals during the day and then throwing an animal on the fire at night and eating it. So he had to stop doing that. He had to stop being hypocritical. And then he suggested that, well, we never really needed meat in the first place because look at a gorilla. A gorilla will fuck you up. And what does a gorilla eat? It eats grass. But again, a gorilla has a different digestive system. When I referred back earlier to the digestive system, and they lied about the human digestive system, suggesting it was 15 times as long as our body, when it's actually only about 5 or 6 times as long as our body. A gorilla's digestive system is 20 times the length of their body. It's kind of like a cow. They are built a different way to only eat plants. So it's irrelevant. But for me, he's saying the best way to protect the animals is to not put them in your mouth, blah, blah, blah. This high and mighty vegan position of saving the animals by not eating them is a lie. It's just an absolute lie. I mean, time and time again, the research is showing that 25 times as many animals die in the production of plant food, and vegans seem happy to eat plants. But they refuse to acknowledge that animals die in the production of plants, even though you don't eat the animal. The animal is just collateral damage. It's in the way. It's going to die. Doesn't matter if that's in the planting of the food or the harvesting of the crop or the poisoning of the animals or the shooting of the animals that are trying to eat the food that was meant for you. Like, come on, Damien. Do you not understand that if you're eating plants while you're protecting rhinoceros and elephants in Africa, which is an admirable cause, good for you, there are farmers shooting the birds and the deer and the roos and the possums that are trying to steal the food that is being grown for vegans. Think about it. Think about it. Okay, so this is going to be really interesting. I haven't seen this yet. I don't want to make a predetermined judgment. But Damien just led into the fact that the meat animal are the biggest threat to our land because they're taking over the land. So the meat animals are taking land away from native animals. And we've zoomed out and we're now going to look at the globe and we're going to check out pasture and cropped land for animals and cropped land for humans. I'm going to make a really early assumption here that they won't fudge these figures because remember, this is a documentary. Yeah, so I'm probably not going to comment much more on this aspect. They are misrepresenting numbers for the convenience of the documentary. They show the number that 83% of all of the world's farmland is utilised by farm animals. And the reality is that almost all of that land is not actually able to be used for cropping of any kind. So if you know anything about agriculture, most of the land around the world where animals run, it's free range, it's pasture based, it's grasslands, there's zero irrigation, it's dry land farming. And you can't grow crops there even if you want to. So the animals are eating in all those parts of the world, the massive majority of the 83%, the animals are eating whatever's growing there that is not fit for human consumption. Like people can't eat the stuff the animals are eating. The animals are then converting that into a food source that we can eat. They're now going to go into the fact, they're going to go into factory farming. They're saying that most of the land that's being taken over is for animals or to feed animals. And this is something that the vegan community has been very effective at, blatantly lying about the amount of food that is grown to feed animals versus humans. Like, they have complete disregard for the truth. And again, I don't think that's okay to lie about the amount of food that's grown for people versus animals, because you're misleading people when you're doing that. So I just question why you would do that. Why would you intentionally lie about these numbers? Other than to mislead people into following your lifestyle because it's going to be beneficial for the planet and It's actually not true. So I'm going to keep watching a bit. I won't comment much more on this, I don't think, because it's a little bit, now we're going to go into the old Cowspiracy and Earthlings and some of those other documentaries where they're just going to portray factory farming and turn people against animal products because of factory farming. And I'm kind of on the same page with that anyway. I really do believe that we need to farm animals in their natural environment, get them back out into the paddock, free range, pasture based, and we need the support of the consumer to make that happen. We don't need the consumer to boycott all animal agriculture. We need the consumer to understand that they can support free range animal agriculture. And that costs more money. It literally costs more money, but you get value for money. It's a cost benefit, if you will, look at it that way. Oh yeah, cool. So now we're going to talk about water, and all the animal agriculture is stealing all the water. It's not getting to the ocean. And I don't think the vegan movement has ever truly considered the fact that if we stop eating animals, because that's what they want us to do, then all of the crops in the world will be for human consumption. And all of the same things that they're complaining about happening right now with water, with deforestation, that will all be happening to feed humans. Crops that are grown partially right now for animals, partially for humans. In the future, that will all be for humans. So we're not going to actually benefit anyone by withdrawing our support of animal agriculture and growing crops for humans instead of crops for animals. Again, misrepresentation of the numbers. Absolutely. So it's pretty cool now where they're going to baffle us with science again. They're going to throw numbers at us and they're going to show us how unsustainable this is. And we've talked about the fact that 83% of the world's farmland is used for animals. And they've tried to suggest that all the deforestation is happening because of animals. And this is tugging on emotional heartstrings again, because you're going to feel bad about these sort of things. And then they show the numbers that suggest that nearly a quarter of the world's fresh water is required to produce animal products. Well, just let's pivot back here a moment to the reality that the 83% of farmland that's used for animals isn't capable of growing crops fit for human consumption. And I think it might be a fair point in time to explain that nearly all of the water, where they show that 2,400 litres of water is required to produce, sorry, I can't remember, a pound or a kilogram, probably a kilogram if they're talking litres, of beef. But if all those farm animals are running in land that's not able to grow crops for either animal food or human food, and it's on predominantly dry land farm, then that means that nearly all of that water that they're talking about is falling from the sky. Now, to suggest for a moment that we can just stop producing animal products for human consumption and we're going to grow plants, we can't use most of that 83% of the land, and we won't benefit from the rain that falls naturally on that land. We will have to look at the remaining 17% of farmland that requires irrigation. So, they're stretching a pretty long bow here. All of these things they're talking about, if you know nothing about agriculture and you don't want to do a Google search and go to the third or fourth page of your search to find out the truth about food production, then this is a very compelling argument. Well done, guys. They've done a great job in portraying some things that are pretty far removed from reality. But it's effective. I'm sure it is. Okay. So we talked a little bit about pollution, and they showed the way that all the farm animals are polluting the water systems. They didn't bother to mention the way crops are grown on an industrial scale to feed humans, They didn't mention anything about herbicides and pesticides that are used to grow plant-based food for humans, because it's not all going to be organic food. I know a lot of people think, well, we'll just eat organic. No, you won't, because that's much more expensive. And we know human nature shows us time and time again that they want to buy what is cheapest. And the cheapest plant-based options are massive polluters of the planet, just like animals. So, whatever. Null and void, but thank you for sharing. And now we've got back onto global emissions. And at least since Cowspiracy, because Cowspiracy tried to tell us only 5 years ago that 51% of all global emissions came from cows. Not agriculture, not livestock, but cows. At least these guys are saying it's only 15%. Maybe vegans are dyslexic. 15, 51, same numbers. Same two numbers, aren't they? But anyway, it's 15%. Now it's apparently 15%, which they then go on to say is the same as all of the transport around the world combined. The cars, the trucks, the buses, the planes, the ships. Well, I don't know where they got that number from, because the numbers I'm seeing are suggesting that transport equates to 28% of global emissions, not less than 15, like this documentary is telling anyone who wants to listen. It's like they're not even close to sharing the truth.